Dave, going real quickly back to David Dix's question about John Husted's bipartisan election advisory committee. Is the 3 C's where you draw the line, or are you endorsing his bipartisan election advisory proposal?
Well, I'm not familiar with his election advisory proposal. I am familiar with his proposal to have a minority member.
Right, that is it.
Okay, I don't support that.
Okay.
And the reason is it's a recipe for gridlock. They're giving a minority, a minority political party, whether it's Republican or Democrat, a veto over the actions of the majority. I just don't think that that's a good way to make decisions.
Okay, thank you for being direct.
You made a call yesterday for performance audits related to private sector, public sector wages. Do you believe the reports that there is that much of a disparity between what's being paid to public workers compared to the private realm? And if you could determine that, what would you do about it?
Well, let me start off by saying generalizations are dangerous things. One of the reasons I'd like to do performance audits on this topic is I believe that there is a set of government employees that are compensated well above their market value. I believe that there's some that are probably paid about what they ought to be, like prosecuting attorneys. That was a joke. And there may well be a subset of government employees that are paid below the market. And what my proposal will do is, instead of casting aspersions and making generalizations, it'll give hard data to give government decision makers the basis to make their decisions. Now, what will I do about it? I'm going to publish the data, and it's going to be up to the governor or the local city council or the school system superintendent to decide what they're going to do with that. I think it's very, I'm a Republican, I talk about limited government all the time. One of the things you have to recognize is that, I think the auditor needs to recognize, I'm not sure my Democratic opponent does, is that the auditor is not the quarterback of state government. It's not the auditor's job to tell the policymakers, it's not the auditor's job to substitute his judgment or her judgment for that of the policymakers. So we'll make that data available. I have to think that in this fiscal environment, decision makers and leaders are going to welcome having hard data to go to the legislative bodies, to negotiate with collective bargaining units where that's necessary, and to make good decisions, because it's the taxpayers' money and the services are supposed to be for the taxpayers.
That'll be interesting.
We're looking at a pretty tight budget next year, potentially cuts. How are you going to pay for extra performance audits and other things you want to do as auditor?
Performance audits are paid for by the client agency, and it's a good deal. The performance audits Mary Taylor's done have identified on average 15 bucks of annual savings, so it's a gift that keeps on giving for every dollar you spend on performance audits. And that's my proposal is to have everybody make sure that everybody goes through this process once every 5 years. Maybe it should be once every 7 years. But the idea would be that an external independent review would happen regularly, not because of politics or somebody was in the paper last week, but because we know that in 2013 it's the Department of Taxation's turn to get a performance audit.
Your opponent was talking about, his record as far as cutting costs in government in years, saying that, your offices are spending an increase, I forget what he said exactly, 8 times the population growth in Delaware County. I mean, how do you respond to that? Delaware County's been booming for the last 20 years, but.
Yeah, I mean, of course we're spending more money than we used to. It's the fastest growing county and has been in Ohio for 15 years. We're one of the fastest growing in the country. We put up a website today because my opponent has said lots of things that tell half the story or completely misrepresent the truth, called truthaboutpepper.com. And there's a number of resources on that page. One of them is to look at prosecutors' offices that are in my weight class, 150,000 to 200,000 people. There's 6 of those counties in Ohio. One of them is Medina. And the fact of the matter is, I spend less in aggregate in my county than any other county in my weight class. I also spend less per capita by almost $4 a head than anybody else in my weight class. So I hear his point. He's just off point. And I might add that the auditor is not the appropriating authority for a local jurisdiction or for the state. The auditor can't cut budgets and can't add budgets or increase budgets. He likes to talk about how he's cut, but I want to tell you just one example of how he's cut. The sheriff's office has been cut by almost $40 million. This is really important because when he came into office in 2007, the sheriff's office got 35% of the pie. Now, the pie has shrunk, and that's not his fault. I don't think that he caused the Great Recession, for the record. But the pie has shrunk now. If he was cutting just everybody evenly, the sheriff should still get 35% of the smaller pie, right? That's not the way it happened. The sheriff now gets 28% of the smaller pie, so he didn't just cut for revenue, he's cut the sheriff in real terms. And I don't think, as a prosecutor, that cutting an essential public service like public safety is really something to be bragging about. And I don't think it's something that the state of Ohio needs.
I think we have time for one more question. It's flown by quickly.
Your predecessor, Mary Taylor, is a CPA, and she had a good reputation in private industry for her work as a CPA before she got into politics. And do you think that should be a requirement of the auditor's office, the auditor to have that kind of professional background? Or?
No, but I'll tell you, I think Mary has done a great job, and I think her background as a CPA has been an important part of why she's done a good job. But I think Jim Petra did a great job too. Jim was a lawyer by training. The fact of the matter is the auditor's office is 830 people spread out all over the state, dealing with everything from the state house to the schoolhouse. And what we need is certainly somebody that understands finance, understands accounting, but we need a leader and a watchdog. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that I was an award-winning county auditor. Our financial statements, our comprehensive annual financial report won the GFOA Certificate for Excellence. Every year I was there. I understand the nuts and bolts. I can read a financial statement. I understand public fund accounting. I understand the nuts and bolts of GASB 34 and sounds like you do too, right? Chuckle.
FASB and all the other things, right?
You know, anecdotally, to close out my response to that question, one of the very small but very important milestones of my career came in the 3rd year of my term as county auditor. County auditor twice a year does disbursement of all the tax money that comes in through the county treasury. In Delaware County, it was $200 million. And we have to reconcile, we have to balance with the treasurer's office. My staff worked for a week and a half and could not get to balance. It couldn't figure out what the problem was. And they brought the blue bar to me, and I found the problem. Now, does that mean that I'm a great accountant? No, it means that I have fresh eyes. But it also means that I got down in the details and I studied enough to know what I was looking at and to be able to supervise and lead that office. When I go to the Auditor State's office, I'll bring that training and that experience with me, and I'll be able to lead those CPAs, and we'll be able to get some good stuff done for the state of Ohio.
Okay, that's our time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.